Welcome to our session From Allyship to Sponsorship Solutions to Design a Diverse and Inclusive Community. My name is Yulkendy Valdez, and I'm the co founder and CEO at Forefront. We are a diversity training and consultancy really committed to fostering equitable organizations for the next generation. And we're excited to work with amazing leaders such as yourself that are really committed to this vision but often don't know how to start. So today we put together a really fun, practical 30-minute session where we're going to break down allyship and sponsorship, which are actually the most effective interventions against bias. So this is a good place to start. We're going to take some time to talk about the role of power, privilege. And yes, these are systems that were built for centuries. So it's going to take a long, long time to really learn. So as we share tips, frameworks, just remember that this is a lifelong journey. This is only the beginning, and this is something that you will continuously have to work over time. So let's get started. Let's start with some definitions. Allyship. What is allyship? Allyship is the process of building relationships based on trust, consistency, and accountability with marginalized individuals and or groups of people. This is an important definition because often when we think about allyship, we think Friday night, we're in a train or the subway, and we notice an incident about to happen, a criminal about to steal someone's wallet. So we called it out, and we're a hero, and we saved the day. But allyship is not about those hero moments. It's about the proactive relationship building and really going outside of your network to actively listen and learn from other people's experiences. That's what allyship is truly about. And sponsorship is the ultimate game changer. Sponsorship is actually a form of allyship, but it requires a really advanced level, right? Sponsorship actually has an impact on someone's career, someone's life. If you're a sponsor, you're helping someone get the connections, the introductions that they need. You're expanding their social capital. You're helping them get promotions. You're helping them get salary increases. That's why sponsorship is actually the most effective form of allyship. There's actually a think tank out of New York City now called Quoquo, previously known as the Center for Talent Innovation, that found that those that have sponsors are 90% less likely to perceive bias in the workplace. What does it mean? That means for me, if I work at a company A and I have a sponsor, a company A that is truly talking about me when I'm not in the room, putting my name down for promotions, I'm more likely to see that workplace as a more diverse, inclusive, and equitable environment where I know someone's looking out for my career and I have an equal chance of succeeding. So these two interventions are really powerful, especially sponsorship, which we don't talk about enough, but we will during this session. But first, let's start with allyship. What does that mean in reality? A good visual is to think about allyship as the same way we would when we activate all our senses. And it's not really about our physical senses. This is an analogy really for what the work requires. But think about it. An ally, again, it's not about those hero moments. An ally in the everyday experiences finds ways to use their mouth to speak out against injustice. So if I hear a microaggression during a meeting, I'm gonna call it out, say why it wasn't appropriate, and introduce new language that might be better. As an ally, I'm also using my nose like an inspector, right? Sniffing out implicit bias. I'm not seeing things just at the surface. I'm always digging deeper to try to figure out how can we improve systems to work for all. And similarly, I'm using my eyes to identify my power and my privilege, right? And know that we're not in a society where, just because you work hard you're going to get something, right? There's a system of play that benefits others more than most. So, how do I use my eyes to really call that out and see it as it's happening? And same with my ears, right? I'm going to be in many rooms where I don't know all the answers as an ally, but I'm still going to be actively listening and learning and unlearning so I can do better the next time, or next time have the resources required to intervene. And I'm going to lead with my heart, with empathy, right? I'm going to give people the benefit of the doubt, and I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to jump into that uncomfortable conversation and be there and be present. And when needed, yes, I'm going to be out there protesting, standing up in the streets for what I believe in, and really calling it out as part of a broader community trying to fight injustice. So see, an ally is not about that one moment where you say, "Hey, I'm an ally. I'm here for you." Allyship takes daily works, and it takes using all of our senses to really be there for marginalized communities and communities of color. Sponsor, again, is a little bit more different, because as a sponsor, you're not just listening, you're not just digging in for information, you're not just intervening in those daily moments, you're actually impacting someone's career. So you're endorsing them publicly, giving them a space to speak at a panel, recommending them for stretch assignments, sharing their career goals with decision makers. And, you know, not everybody gets to be a sponsor. You usually can be a sponsor if you're in some position of power, if you're a manager or you lead a team or you lead a particular initiative or group. So once you have those leadership opportunities, think through, how can I pass it forward, and also be intentional that you're passing those forward to people that are different than you. Why does this matter? Because there's a lot of discrepancy in the data, right? When it comes to allyship, more than 80% of white employees see themselves as allies to women of color at work. But in the reality, just 45% of Black women and 55% of Latinas say they have strong allies in the workplace. Big gap. And the same thing with sponsorship. Only 13% of Black women have sponsors. And that is because 71% of sponsors choose proteges with the same gender or race. We want to choose our mini-me's, people that look like us, because they remind us of how we started, our background, and that's really cool. But then once you think about it, right now, if the leadership is mostly white, who's going to be supporting the other mini-me's of color and other marginalized communities? So we need to actively, when choosing our proteges, also make sure we're sponsoring marginalized communities if we truly want to make a difference. And again, this is not only statistic, I live this myself, and that's the reason I care a lot about this work. I was born in the Dominican Republic to teenage parents. I grew up with my grandparents and immigrated to the States at the age of 10, going 11. And I came to St. Louis, Missouri. That's the middle of the United States of America, where there weren't a lot of people like me. So in every room that I enter, I noticed those power lines of difference. I noticed that I had this feeling that I didn't belong. I felt really isolated. So it was really hard for me to get access early on to those allies and sponsors as I transitioned from my education into the early years of my career. So your work as an ally and a sponsor truly matters, but it starts with really digging into your own identities, your experiences and your backgrounds, understanding your own power and privilege so you can do this work better. This is also a good place to start, because you can better identify when you should be an ally and we should be a sponsor. Now, at the same time, you could be at the receiving end. There's times where you're gonna need allyship, or you're going to need sponsorship and you also have to ask for it. It's a very reciprocal relationship and it's not all absolute. Sometimes we're allies, sometimes we're receiving allyship, sometimes we're the sponsors, sometimes we're the proteges, depending on our environment. So it's very important to understand how this works holistically. But to get there, let me tell you about this model that really helps us ground on how the system works. See, we were all born with a bag full of coins. Coins. And the question is not how much money do you have in your bag, but is it heads? Is it tails? How many heads and tails do you have in your bag? Okay, which one's better? What am I talking about? Well, we all heard you don't want to be at the tail end of the stick. Heads, you win. Tails, you lose. See, coins are a good model for talking about systems of power and privilege and oppression, because just like these systems, they're two-sided, right? In the simplest form. So see, at the top of the coin are those that have advantage that others do not. They didn't earn it. It's just simply because how they were born. That's privilege. At the bottom of the coin, you have disadvantages that others do not. You did not earn it. It's simply because how you were born. That's oppression. And the center of the coin here is what perpetuates the system. It's that system of inequality, that social structure that creates sexism, racism, and ableism, etc. And what we see, and it's hard to talk about, but historically and all the trends and data points that those that often experience privilege are white, able-bodied, heterosexual, they're attractive, they're upper and middle class, etc. Those at the bottom of the coin are usually female, LGBTQ, are usually people of color, are usually people with disabilities, etc. So again, here we have a system that's not balanced and that's only working for some. So as allies and sponsors, we have a chance to rebalance the scale, to change up the system, to make sure that more and more people are starting with equal amount of resources to get to that next point, whether point B, point C. So again, that's why this conversation today is so important. But to better identify that, as individuals, we have to go through a process of what we call empty your bag of coins. Empty them, right? Let's see where we have heads. Let's see where we have tails, where we have privilege, where we have not, where we experience power, where we experience lack thereof. Again, it's a vulnerable, very humble thing to do, but those are able to empty their bag of coins, become better allies, become very better sponsors. So let me take you through how this process works. So for me, often as a woman of color, as an Afro-Latina, I had no choice but to empty my bag of coins. People saw my differences from the moment that I walk into the room. So how I stayed in control of that is by myself being grounded on my own identity. I understood that when it comes to race, being Black, I got tail. I'm at the end of the stick, right? When it comes to my ethnicity, being Dominican from the Caribbean, place with fewer resources, also I'm at the tail end of the stick as an immigrant. When it comes to my gender, when it comes to my age, similar. And again, being you would say a millennial in your 20s will give you head, will give you privilege. But depending on the space, right? I'm often in corporate spaces where being young and having less experience is actually seen as not a good thing, right? So again, with many of these things, it changes. It depends on the environment you're in. So please, as you do this exercise, take into account your context, where you work, your society, your community might look different, but in most cases, again, we see very similar results. With my native language, speaking Spanish first and English also tailed in. So I had to understand how to navigate that and how to have a conversation as I was going after jobs and top opportunities. But also, I knew I was educated. I knew I went to a 4-year degree institution, so I have privilege where others did not. For example, just looking at my own family, being the first person to graduate. So I had to be very grounded on that identity. And it helped me achieve so much more. I understood, hey, I'm a cisgender female, which means I'm just born in the body that I was supposed to be born in. I'm Afro-Latina with Caribbean roots. I also grew up in St. Louis, Missouri. That's a very different experience than growing up as an immigrant in New York or in New Jersey where I'm at now, right? So that really gave me the toolkit to understand how to navigate rooms and how to identify allyship when I needed it, and how to also look out for that mentorship and sponsorship in my career. So this is an exercise that we recommend that you do. And again, it's not going to happen overnight, but take some moments to just reflect about your own identity, your experiences, and where you see you have privilege and where you see you don't. And get grounded on the identity. And as soon as you show up to every conversation, to every meeting, you empty your bag of coins and say, hey, I know I'm coming from this perspective and I'm ready to listen, and here's where I can contribute. And more people are doing that, and it's helping us have better conversations. So when you're listening to this video, rewatching it, feel free to pause it and go to each identity dimension and ask yourself, am I race or tails? Am I heads or tails when it comes to race? Am I heads or tails when it comes to gender? And do this exercise and do it with your friends and colleagues. And again, this is going to help you understand how to be a better ally moving forward, because you're going to be grounded on those power differences, which are important for this conversation. And again, how does that practically look like? Well, let's say we have in a scenario of a salary negotiation. A colleague of yours is in the middle of one. And so when it comes to salary, when it comes to the wage gap that we know exists, are you heads or are you tails? So most likely, if you're a male, most likely white male, able-bodied, educated, you're going to be heads when it comes to the situation. If you're a woman, if you're a person of color, you're going to be in that tail end. But again, there's depending on who is in the other side, there's varying levels of where that falls. For example, if I was in the middle of a salary negotiation and my colleague was a white woman, most likely white women are going to get paid more than a Black woman or a Latina, right? Because we all seen the statistics. So depending on who you're talking to, you can first get grounded on where those power lines of privilege exist. And once you identify yourself in that scenario as someone that have heads, you have a good catalyst to be an ally. You have the tool to be an ally because you're already in a position of privilege. If you're marginalized or you're in the tail end of the stick, similar to the person going to a salary negotiation, you can still offer support, community. You can co-create, brainstorm solutions together. But again, allies usually are coming in from a place of privilege and power and are trying to rebalance the scale. So again, if you're heads with this situation, if you have privilege, you can do the following as an ally. First, you can demonstrate transparency around your own salary and ask other team members that are privileged to do the same. Because again, if there's more transparency, they're gonna have a number to ask for when it comes to that raise. You can facilitate a conversation involving your managers and say, hey, we need to do more at our company about pay equity. This is why it's important for me, right? As an ally, you're not only working for the other person, you understand that a better system would also benefit you. So you're doing the work for you. and you're doing the work for everybody, right? That's what leadership, allyship is all about. And you can also even take some time and coach your colleague on salary negotiation best practices that work for you. Note that that may not all apply to that person, and you should make it clear, but you're coming from a place where you just want to support and help as much as you can, but always have those disclaimers, right? And then let's say you want to take it to that ultimate advanced level of allyship. You can be a sponsor. And you can be a sponsor if you're already a manager, or you're a head of a team and you have the role of already being able to say yes to that salary promotion. So you can make sure that every colleague in your team is getting paid equally. And you can also make sure that your team members attend a salary negotiation course and make sure that it's free and available and accessible. And actually, you can do that even if you're not a manager. If you have some extra money and you want to help, you can say, hey, there's this salary negotiation course, and give it as a gift. These are ways to be a sponsor. Is actively using your wallet, is actively using your power to make a difference in someone's career. So this is a good model, the coin model, emptying your bag of coins to really get you started on your way to becoming a better ally and a sponsor.
Hello, everyone. I'm ready to answer any questions you might have. Thank you for listening, and I hope you found it helpful. As you think of questions, I just posted a longer version of the presentation. Obviously, that was a lot for 20, 25 minutes. So if you want to look at the presentation, do some more exercises or revisit the old exercises, please do. You might wonder why the session was so focused on individual exercises, identity development, personal work, because that's often the skip step, that we don't do when considering DEI work. When in reality, we know that, this work starts with us, right? We need to understand our identity, our history, own it, hold ourselves accountable for it. And if we do that, we're going to be able to actually move the needle a little faster than we're doing. Although, as you've seen, there's tons of investment, there's tons of progress we should be proud of, but this needs to continue to be lifelong work. So I hope you do that with your friends and colleagues. It's something that doesn't take a lot. And thank you for the feedback on the chat. I appreciate it. Any questions I can answer? I don't see any, but I'm happy to stay on the line and answer any questions via chat. Okay, wait a minute. Let's see. Awesome. I had someone ask me a fun question. It's directed to me. What's the best thing a sponsor ally has done for you? So on the sponsorship side, right, using your wallet, your power to really further someone's career, the best thing my sponsors have done for me is send emails on my behalf to investors, potential clients, really backing my expertise, and that ensure that I would get that business, so that I would get that new investors. Because as we know, a lot still moves through referrals, word of mouth. So that's why the social capital gap and fixing for that is so important. So I'm really happy for my sponsors who took those extra 5 to 10 minutes to send that email and really vouch for me. In terms of the allyship, as you know, in 2020, last year, last summer was really tough, right? Because for the first time in a while, a lot of people got a visual of what it what it looks like a little bit for Black lives every day. As we saw the murder of George Floyd, we heard about the murder of Breonna Taylor in her own home, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm originally from Missouri. I live close to Ferguson, where we heard about the murder of Michael Brown, a young boy that went to the same school district that I did. And I remember a lot of friends, allies texting me, but I wanted more than a text. And that's what I told them, because the text said, what can I do for you? But being an ally is about what can we do for each other, because allyship benefits the ally as well. And that's something that once we understand that, that's when real change is going to happen. Building a more equitable world benefits everyone, not just Black people, not just Latinx and Indigenous people, not only Asian people. It benefits everyone. And so a true ally knows that and said, hey, what can we do? And so I appreciate it when folks just invited me to eat, have a conversation, really get to know each other and really understand how we can build our relationship moving forward, not just like a one-handed, what can I do for you? So thank you for asking that question. And I hope it helps as you think and reflect on the ways you've given allyship, received allyship, because sometimes we just got to ask for what we need. An ally might not know, and it's up to us to give them that honest feedback. But that doesn't mean it's also the job or responsibility of underrepresented people to say that. So you also have to accept if they don't want to. That's just my personal narrative. Thank you, Jack. That works. I hope you all are enjoying the rest of the conference. We're continuing to make it work through the virtual reality. And the good thing is that it allows us to actually view the recording and continue the work even after the session. Awesome. Thank you for the feedback and have a great day, everyone. I'll go off camera since I don't see any questions, but again, I'll stay for a little in the chat in case anyone wants to reach me. Thank you.